2018. Call the meeting to order. This time I'd like to ask the CAO if there's any late items.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, we do not have any items to include on the agenda.
Seeing no late items, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated? Councillor Ventimiglia, Schwarzenberger. Any discussion? Question? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. No items to report. Adoption of prior minutes. Motion to adopt September 26, 2018 Food Action Advisory Committee minutes. Do I have a so word? Call the question. All for it? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to adopt October 31st, 2018 Cemetery Committee meetings. So moved. Seconder, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to receive the November 7th, 2018 Food Action Advisory Committee minutes. I'm going to endorse the resolution recommended that delegation appear before council regarding the harvest proposal. Moved Councillor Ventimiglia, seconded Councillor Schwarzenberger. Discussion. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to adopt November 13th, 2018 regular minutes. Councillor Ventimiglia, seconded Councillor Rice. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the last one. Motion to adopt November 2018 special open minutes. Mover, Councillor Mattis, seconded Councillor Ventimiglia. Any discussion? Seeing none. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving to water matters. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed that we do not have one of our water councillors here at the table as of yet. So in order for us to move forward with this first three readings of this, it has to be a unanimous vote of all council members, or we have to send it to the province for their approval. So I'm wondering if you would like to possibly go into your delegations and put the water matters on hold for a few minutes to provide that opportunity for Councillor Sadhu to get here.
I'd like to provide that opportunity. Has anybody been able to text him or get a hold of him?
I've sent a text.
Okay. Let's do that. Three delegations to approve for council this evening. The first delegation in the South Okanagan Smokemean Division of Family Practice, Dr. Maddie S. Smallwood, Dr. Peter Entwistle, Dr. Jacob Bellingham.
Thank you. We received a letter of support from you a month or so ago, and we thought it best to come and update you on the current situation at our hospital, particularly the emergency department. It's often in the news due to numerous issues. We feel from the doctor's side we have the same goal as the town and the public. We all want to open and a functioning emergency department at our hospital. So unfortunately we anticipate more issues going forward, more potential closures, unfilled shifts, and we're not finding solutions at the moment. The current ER schedule runs until the end of March, and we still have numerous unfilled shifts that needs to be filled. So I'll give you some information about the recent history, the current situation. I'll give Peter a chance to say a few things, and then we'll answer whatever questions you have. At the moment, the ER is staffed by a group of 7 local physicians, We have 2 physicians on a contract basis. They do a set amount of hours per month, and then we heavily rely on locum physicians, out-of-town physicians, to fill our schedule. The way we are remunerated is fee for service, which means you get remunerated per patient that you see, not for your time. There is other contracts in place, MOCAP and REEF, which is a fixed funding that you get per shift. So the problem we have in our ER is not new. This has been going on for, I've been here 6 years, this has probably been going on for 10 years. Over the past 10 years, we've experienced challenges in filling ER shifts, and it's a combination of low income and high workload, and then also the competing priority of family practices. Medicine has changed a lot over the years. There's lots of other things that physicians do: maternity, addiction, interventional pain medicine, palliative care, and that's why you have a situation where not all physicians work in the emergency department anymore. As I said earlier, we rely heavily on out-of-town physicians to fill all our shifts, but due to this imbalance between pay and workload, retaining these physicians are near impossible. And we're on a constant battle to recruit new physicians, but we struggle to retain these physicians. More issues: there's a significant gap in compensation between us and other hospitals. For example, Penticton Regional Hospital. It makes these retention more challenging. In 2017, over the course of 6 months, we had a series of meetings with Interior Health and representatives from Doctors of BC, and we explored options how to improve coverage for our emergency department. The conclusion that we made with Interior Health was to apply for what's called an APP contract, alternate payment plan. That would mean you get paid per hour, not per patient, and this is something that other hospitals have in place. We felt that a contract like this would stabilize ER compensation. It will allow us to be paid for our time and not for the amount of patients seen. The question came up often: what makes our hospital unique? Why do we have these challenges? Why does a fee-for-service contract not work? And there's some interesting stats that explains that. We have an older and sicker population compared to the rest of the province. We have an older population. We have more people with chronic diseases. There's a specific stat about people living what's called towards end of life, which is the last, 5 years, I think. Our rate is double the provincial average. So what this means is that we have more challenging patients, and a patient coming into the emergency department often takes longer to sort out. We have the snowbirds that come during the winter. The snowbirds are typically people with chronic health problems, high medical insurance as a result of that, so they don't go down south to the States anymore. Where am I? So, the other thing is that because of the lack of available outpatient care, we also have a lot of people with what's called minor complaints ending up in the ER, and that takes a considerable time and resources from one single on-call physician to sort out. Interestingly, in 2008, there was also an application made for an APP which was denied at the time, and our ER issues have persisted since then. Our ER is always at a crisis or at the verge of a crisis with last-minute shift filling, recruiting new doctors that we cannot retain, constant loss of ER hopefuls back to family practice, to Penticton Regional Hospital. We have the jail that's adding the demand on us. New family doctors recruited are always very keen to work in the ER, but they quickly lose interest after learning they can find better resources, working conditions, compensations in other practice environments. Our challenges have persisted with multiple unfilled shifts that's being covered by replacement physicians, last minute coverage by local GPs who are not on the ER rotation. We've had physicians working double shift to cover ER shifts, and as you obviously know, we've had closures. The competing priority of family practice makes it difficult for us to fill these unfilled shifts. Due to the volume of the ER patients, it's difficult to plan your office and to just go and do unfilled shifts. The APP application we submitted to the ministry in January of this year, but in April the ministry informed us we received a written reply that our application was denied, and unfortunately soon afterwards we started feeling the consequences with one of our contract physicians leaving, and also some of the local physicians stepping away from the ER. We have recruited new locum doctors, but we currently still struggle to fill all the shifts. As a small group doing the ER shifts, we're trying our best to keep the ER open, but the group is slowly getting burned out. We often try our best behind the scenes to fill all shifts. And you and the public are obviously only aware of when there is an actual closure, but there's many last minute shift fillings that happens. Peter?
Thank you. Our hope was to explain the issues and then sort of maybe look at solutions and hope that we can have the town council helping us with that. The biggest issue from our point of view is no one takes responsibility for providing emergency service. If you ask Interior Health, they will say it's the doctors. The doctors will say it's Interior Health, or the ministry will say it's someone else. No one takes responsibility. And we're coming to the situation now where we, few physicians, seven of us unelected, are being given the option of stepping back and closing emergency. When it closes, it won't open again. The nurses that are employed there will move. We'll go from having an acute unit to just like a long-term medical care medical unit. It's going to have widespread impact on health for sure, but also it's going to have an impact on the economics of the communities of the South Island. And no one is looking at what that impact is. No one's looking at even the health impact. We don't know. We know, but the figures aren't out there in public of how many deaths we could expect by closing the unit. It's just the assumption is that it's not that busy, it's just going to happen by default. So I think as elected councillors and mayor for our communities, that you need to be stepping up and saying whose responsibility is it to provide emergency services. Because if it's us, we're pretty much beat. We can't keep doing this. There are solutions that are available, but it all comes down to there's not enough resource. People come and tell us to move money from one place to another. It's like a sheet over a bed that's not quite big enough. You pull one way and it pulls the other. So it all comes down to extra money. During the election campaign last year, the Interior Health found extra money to make sure there were no closures. But since then, that's not happened. It's frankly disingenuous of Interior Health to suggest that they have no plans for closure. They don't have plans at all. They're waiting for it to close. They're expecting it to close. From our point of view, we're asking for the council to hold Interior Health and the ministry to account, because it's not our responsibility. We can't do it. It would be nice if we could have other support in terms of attracting locums. Councillor Vietwiller has been very helpful over the past few years in getting locums and supporting them. But one of the things that we need is accommodation this summer. In the past, I've just put people up at my house, but that's not something that can continue forever. That's all we wanted to say. I'm open for questions. Myself and Dr. Bellingham can speak openly and frankly. Dr. Small is head of ER and is limited in terms of what she can say. Thank you.
Questions, Council? Go ahead, Councilor Vince-Miller.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. When we got wind, I don't know what it was, maybe a month ago now, or 2-3 weeks ago at least, that there were maybe some sort of impending changes in the service levels and that sort of thing, we reached out to you at that point. And so it's very nice to have you here so quickly to kind of explain the issues for everyone to hear. I have a couple of questions kind of just that have come up from what you were talking about. When you, like, the big issue seems to keep going back to pay. And if we had the APP, things would be, you know, just because we're so close to Penticton, it's so easy for people to kind of migrate that way. Interior Health supported the application in last year, 2017, whenever that was.
Yep.
Okay, because when we went to UBCM 2 years ago now, when that, I think just right around the time that you had submitted the APP, the minister at the time said to us that they were in full support of whatever Interior Health was in support of. So I'm not really sure what the breakdown occurred, and it would be interesting to find out. But I did read a couple of weeks ago, kind of sort of as things are coming to the surface again, that they denied the application because it was too heavily focused on the emergency department. Was that true?
Yeah, that's not more like a holistic approach to medicine in general and community. But our problem is
whole problem
the
is the
emerge.
emergency
I mean, our
department.
practices and all the other parts of the community medicine are functioning quite well.
So do you have any idea, I just thought of this in Penticton only because it's our closest comparison. Does their APP cover more than just the emergency department? Or is it just the emergency
No,
department?
I believe just the emergency department.
That's
Yeah, and the way the application worked is it's actually the health region that applies for the APP application.
Mhm.
So we had to convince Interior Health that
They
this
applied.
is what we want, and the application was actually primarily signed by Interior Health before it was submitted.
So the irony is that this is the third APP bid. The first APP bid was rejected because we were too global. So,
Alright, so maybe we'll find a happy balance there at some point. Okay, I just have one other question that I jotted down. I think, Dr. Ramos, you kind of answered it, but, knowing then that there are multiple unfilled shifts at this point coming up over the next couple of months, has Interior Health offered any backup or words of wisdom?
So basically, they've just asked that we cover the shifts for what they call life, limb, or threatened organ, which, if you look at how we triage patients, there's a CTAS delegation to triaging ranging from the most acute to the least acute, and it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to them, life, limb, or threatened organ is 1s and 2s, and so their idea is that you stay in the hospital and the nurses will call you for 1s and 2s, but that's what we're already doing on a night shift. So essentially, they're just asking us to take more shifts, which we've told them with the limited doctors that we are, that we've all basically taken more than we're already capable of taking. So it's essentially just asking us to take more shifts. So no, they haven't.
Councilor Brice.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, just to clarify, there's only 7 doctors right now that are covering the ER
That aren't locums.
that aren't locums. So what does that look like for each doctor for your shift load right now?
What do you mean? by
Like what
locum?
type of hours are you having to put in right now to cover those shifts for between the 7 of you?
Well, at the moment, there's 90 emerge shifts in a month, right? So 90 divided by 7.
Okay. That's a lot.
In addition to our family practice, and we also have what we call a doctor of the day rota. So that's separate from the emerge, where we cover for the ward and the long-term care facilities in the evenings and weekends, and we do weekend ward rounds. So we're doing family practice, emerge, DOD, long-term care coverage, in addition to whatever meetings and things you have, so.
So it'd probably be safe to say it's having a negative impact on your private practices as well. Are you having to cut your hours in your practices to cover the ER shifts?
Well, if you do an overnight shift, you know, most doctors will work, a day in their practice, and then they'll work the night in emerge. So most of them will take the next day off to get some sleep. So then their clinic will be closed.
The unfortunate thing with the fee for service, the way it works is that if you think of the compensation part, if you work 8 to 5, Monday to Friday in your office, compared to a doctor who does lots of ER shifts, the guy that works 8 to 5 obviously has a better lifestyle. He financially comes out better than the person doing ER shifts.
So is fee for service, just to clarify, are you being paid per patient? Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Schwartzberg.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for coming here. Obviously, it would be devastating to our community if we lost the ER department, but it would be doubly devastating to Osoyoos because they have an extra 20 minutes to get to Penticton. So have you presented to the Osoyoos Council, and perhaps we could get Osoyoos and us, two of us might have more impact with interior health than just ourselves howling at the moon, it seems like, anyway.
Yeah, so we have reached out to Osoyoos Council and we have a meeting for December 20th.
Hopefully we can do something before that and get Osoyoos Council on board with us.
Counselor Whitney.
The last time when we presented to the Ministry of Health, it was in conjunction with the SUGIS, and it was sort of as a result of talks that were going on at that time, and we got together and figured out the best way forward, and it absolutely seems like it's time to do it.
Absolutely.
Counselor Matt.
Quick question. Does Penticton Regional Hospital have an APP contract in place, like separate from their normal operations? Is that something that you would have access to, that you could model your application on to say, hey, if it works for them, it should work for us theoretically? Because you say you've fallen off the table one side and off the other side. Somehow you need to find a middle ground. Are there other models out there that would have that middle ground that you could work off of to copy?
So, I mean, it's a great question. We could follow that model, but actually we could be part of that model. There's nothing to stop IH just saying the two hospitals in one department. It's to blame the ministry. If they wanted to keep it open, they could keep it open by combining the two departments. The administration are all the same people who cover both hospitals. The only difference is we get paid, the physicians get paid a different rate. Everyone else gets paid.
Is that something that IH has considered? Has that been part of the application process?
Well, it's not an application process. IH considered it, costed it, and then rejected it.
So at that point, you lost their support, even though you had it individually, you couldn't get it as global.
When they were asking for someone else's money, it was, but when IH made the choice of spending its own money to support Oliver, then it chose not to.
Counselor Schwartzberg.
Just one last thing, we talk about IH's money and the ministry's money. IH is funded by the ministry, is that not correct? So they all have their own little pots they look after, but in reality, it's the Ministry of Health that says, okay, IH, your funding is $1 billion, and next, to keep this facility open, it needs to be $1 billion plus another 100,000.
Sure, but IH has discretion over how it spends some of its money.
Right.
So
It has discretion over the money it's allocated,
That's right.
but they're not getting any new money allocated to fix a new problem or an old problem in this case.
IH found the money last June.
Of course they did when the election was on. Yeah.
rough numbers, how much extra money we're talking about trying to fund?
Yes, we actually gave the figures to Imperial Health and 400,000 more or less will cost them additionally to what our current fee-for-service billings are.
I have one question, just so that I'm clear, so this is this boiling down to a funding issue? If there was more funding, or there would be more doctors, or there would be more doctors interested?
I believe so, that was our viewpoint. The local physicians will never be able to fill all these shifts, so we do rely on physicians from out of town to come down and do shifts, and the way to attract these physicians is by proper compensation, just comparable to other areas of medicine. We've always been good at recruiting. We always get new doctors, but they don't stay because they quickly find another area to work. So improving the compensation, I believe, will definitely help us to retain physicians, because that's our problem, retention.
So of the 7 doctors that are for the ER, are they all in Oliver, or does that include?
Between Oliver and Suez.
Between Oliver and Suez. And if you had more funding, you think there would be more doctors from Penticton that would come down, or?
Yeah, what we call our locum doctors all live in Penticton, Summerland, and other areas. We also have 2 doctors on a contract, which means they have to do a set number of hours per year, and they live both in Penticton.
Okay.
We had 3, and one did not renew his contract after the APP application was denied.
Councilor Fitzgerald?
Which is kind of then, that idea of combining both emergencies and making them one department, so that you just basically open shifts in all of our cities. You can choose wherever you want to be, whenever you want to be, and it doesn't really matter because the compensation is the same. One's not more attractive than the other.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people struggle with Oliver as well because, when you're in Penticton, there's several doctors on. You've got your CT scanner, you've got your specialist on call, you've got your support staff. Here it's 1 doctor, 2 nurses, and that's it, right? So a lot of people come down here, they find it a more stressful environment, less resources, and less compensation. So I mean, it's not really a difficult decision to make.
Thank you again. It's great to get some insight into that.
Thanks.
I have a note here that Councilor Sadu is available by conference call. Do we want to do that now? So Carol will just take care of the water matters.
They want to do this.
The number you have called cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the...
Okay, that was 9.
9.
Maybe I did 1, so
You don't
maybe
need 1.
because it's a cell. Did everybody hear that?
Okay.
Try that again.
He hung up on us. Hello?
Am I doing something wrong or is it? Yeah.
It's ringing.
Yeah,
Maybe text him and tell him you're trying to call him.
I did. It's not connecting. Plug it in. Plug it in there.
It's dialing here.
Well, we can always just do it on a regular phone too, if we do have to. Says he's answering, but.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
I'm just gonna move you into the circle of life. So, Counselor Sadoo, on one?
Can you hear me, Councillor Sadu?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, let's move into item F1, Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05 for first, second, and third reading. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is to introduce the Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05, which was prepared in accordance with Council's direction from the November 20th, 2018 special open meeting. I will now pass it over to our Deputy Finance Officer to put Council through the report and the bylaw.
Thanks, Kathy. Can you hear me? I'm not used to sitting on this side, so. Further to Council's direction and the resolution to prepare the budget based on the 3% increase, that has been included in the fees and charges bylaw in the Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351, and the annual water rates have been adjusted to reflect that 3% increase. In addition, the other area that Council directed staff was to remove the Hester Creek pump replacement from the operating budget and include it with the capital budget, which has been done. And now that's the only resolutions that Council made in regard to the water matters. So this this report is to receive the report and direct staff to give first three readings, and with December 10th being the adoption, or receive the report and direct staff to prepare water rates and bylaws based on a different percentage increase.
Any questions? Staff recommendation to receive the Deputy Finance Officer's report dated November 21st, 2018 for information, and the Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05 be read first, second, and third time. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mattis, seconder. Councillor Price. Any discussion? Call the question, those for. Councillor Sadu? Yes or no? Yes or no? Call the question, in favor?
No.
You're not in favor?
Sorry, it's cutting out.
Just maybe go ahead and talk.
Okay, we'll just go over those. Are you in favor of giving the bylaw 3 readings?
Yes.
Okay.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stu.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Moving to Water Council reports, Councillor
I
Michelle.
guess we could have left him on for reports.
The budget meetings, Your Worship, and we just gave for a second before you needed to. I have a question. Did we, is there any progress with True Engineering, or was that too preliminary on looking at some of all of that, consolidating all of that future canal work?
Thank you, Your Worship. We did have a conference call with True Engineering this morning, and we are looking at taking that All North project information and putting it into the overall application that we're doing with regards to the disaster relief with the federal government. I also spoke with the federal government today. You have a look on your face.
No, I've got another question.
Okay. I spoke with the federal government today just to get clarification with regards to expanding our application to include those, and that's what they're indicating that we should do, is to expand our application to include that that work that needs to be done, the $5 million.
That was the question I was gonna ask, because
Yeah.
we haven't really, council hasn't approved a number the consolidated number, I don't even know what it is. A lot bigger is better, but I mean.
We discussed that at the last meeting, I do believe, we were talking back and forth with regards to the All North, it's a $5 million.
5 million.
5 million, just a little over, well, just a little under 5 million, from their report with regards to the work that has to be done along the whole of the canal.
So this federal program, another question, they said it was $20 million, but maybe they're gonna be flexible as we under that, I don't know. But is that their portion? Because we've got $5 million coming from the provincial government.
What they would do is if we were to put in, like, put it at 15 million, because currently right now we have that 10 million with a $10 million contingency. But if we were to put it in at 15 million with a $5 million contingency, we have the $5 million from the provincial government. And then they would provide 40% funding of the 15 million. And it worked out to where we were talking about borrowing $4 million to get all the work done. And it was basically a $2 million,
Yeah, this is going in the right direction, but I think we need to know, the council needs to know all these numbers before we start to proceed. I mean, we haven't agreed to going in. I mean, these are preliminary discussions, I don't, you know, is the rest of council just let them go ahead? We don't care how much they borrow, I mean, I care. You know, I mean, our share, I wanna know what our share is gonna be, and I mean, there's a lot of answers that need to be answered, questions that need to be answered.
Water Councilor Michelle, I'm sorry, I was, from the discussion that we had on the 20th, I thought that was, that discussion indicated, because we talked about the $4 million being borrowed, that we would have to probably borrow $4 million. There, but,
Yeah,
I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
If you could bring up the motion wasn't to do, I mean, the motion was to discuss, to involve true engineering and looking at tying it into a larger application. It wasn't a specific motion to go ahead and do all of that and borrow $4 million.
okay, I'm sorry that,
You know.
staff misunderstood what you had indicated.
Well,
when
no,
you were
I mean, the
talking.
motions is part of the minutes, so I mean, that wasn't the motion. So I mean, I think council has to decide that.
Well, my understanding on the motion was to take all the projects related to the canal and put them all together into one capital project. That was the only motion that I remember council voting on. The other one was the discussion on funding, potential funding for the project, which we know is, if I'm correct in my understanding, is approximately $10 million to reroute the siphon around Gallagher Lake. And then the All North report, there was another $5 million, a little over $5 million actually, in maintenance and repair items that were required. And from the former mayor's visit to Ottawa, there was a federal grant program that we might have a better shot at because it included a lot more money than just the $5 million in addition that's needed to fix or reroute the siphon around Gallagher Lake. Councilor Schwartzberger.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councilor Michelle. We have to do a resolution and talk about if we're going to do 4 million or what we're going to do. But I think it's a little premature to do that when we don't have any indication that our grant is going to come through. So if we're applying for a grant and we get it, then we have to figure out how we're going to pay for our share, whether it's going to be through taxation or borrowing or a combination of both. But if we don't get the grant, then it's hypothetical at that point, whether we go forward, whether we're obviously not going to do the whole thing in one fell swoop if we don't get the grant. That's my opinion.
Councilor Matz.
As well, to go along with the other two councillors, is absolutely we'll have to look at final numbers And we'll have to look at where our funding's going to come from, one way or the other. Because if we don't get the funding from the federal government, we're going to have to look at other options. We can't stand still and wait, regardless of how this comes out. So we may end up borrowing no matter what the case may be. Certainly it'll be good to have final numbers, and I'm certain that staff will be more than happy to share that application with council once it reaches that point. I don't know, I think the deadlines were in January, if I understood correctly. So I would expect that we'll have something forthcoming from staff fairly quickly to outline exactly what the numbers are that you're concerned with.
CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. That was a direction that we were talking with True Consulting this morning, was to try and figure out the numbers, and also to figure out exactly, I do believe the grant can go till 2026. That's the period of time that you have to use the grant funds. So it's over a longer period of time than just 1 year or 2 years. It's to 2026. Because it's a larger project, they allow for a longer time on the grant. And so we were looking at those particular things also, and looking at the numbers to see what it would cost if we were to borrow funds, or if we increase taxes, or how much can be put away each year, etc. So that information is coming from True Consulting.
So council's gonna have, we're gonna make decisions to either apply for $4 million
Yeah.
worth of borrowing. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, I didn't, I think that's gotta be council's decision.
Oh,
Absolutely.
most
Yeah.
definitely.
Would work.
Absolutely.
Councilor Ventimiglia.
I just have one question, specifically regarding the grant. So it's, the application is due at some point in January, and when would we know the results?
I'm not sure on when they would, probably this spring, probably before July of next year.
Could you explain $5 million contingency? What is that all about? I mean, it sounds like, okay, we could apply for $15 million, which is $5 million from the canal road plus the 10 from Gallagher Lake. So what's this ambiguous $5 million? That's not
It's a
pocket change.
contingency that you might not use,
Right.
but the application has to be for $20 million. That's the threshold for the application.
That's the minimum.
Yeah,
That's
I-
the minimum. So it's already been approved to go forward from to put in a full application. But in the conversation that the ex-mayor had down in Ottawa, there was two things that came out of that conversation, was to look at possibly expanding the scope of the application to get closer to the threshold of the 20 million, and also to ensure that we expand on the fact that it's a public utility, not a private utility, and to explain to them that it's all of taxpayers that pay for it, whether it's rural, whether it's an urban, or it's agriculture. That it's a public utility, and yes, we collect fees for it, and that's how it's managed.
Councilor Michelle, have you read the All North report at all?
The entire.
Because my only comment on that is there's a lot of structural design issues that need to be sorted out that can protect the canal from slides coming down the mountain. There's a variety of options in there as well. So having a contingency would be very beneficial and give us some leeway moving forward on what the option is really going to be the best. Because one is more expensive than the other, and we could take the cheaper one, but maybe if we have the contingency, we could also do some better things that would protect it from risk.
Well, we've applied once and been turned down. I understood we're gonna apply again for trying to cover the canal at Tinhorn and Hester. That was a different grant application.
It was, and that was 100% funding.
Yeah, it was 100% funding.
Yeah,
So
and
if we were successful there, I'd prefer to get part of that done with 100% funding than have.
Let's pack it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. I think that we need as a council to see all those numbers, I mean.
Once we get them all together,
Yeah, absolutely.
we're working on it, and that was just this morning we started talking about it. And
So before the application goes in, since the deadline is the end of January, council's gonna have an opportunity to review what numbers we're actually applying for, what debt we would have to try and
Yes.
borrow for service we're gonna have an opportunity to do that before the application goes in, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. that's all.
And out of the last meeting, there was also a request to find out what our, debt servicing was.
Yeah, I read that.
Our debt servicing limit was.
Right.
And so that was shared with all of council today too, so that you're aware of that. And that was out of that conversation where we were talking about the $4 million and stuff, so.
What's our current debt? Eddie, do you know? What's our current debt?
I don't have the debt figure, I have the payment figure of 581,000 is our annual debt payments. I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual, maybe I have it here, just one sec.
The only reason I'm asking is I read that email that I saw the number that we could borrow up to.
That's right, that's our debt capacity,
That's
$19
right.
million.
I'm just curious where we're at already. That's all.
Sorry, I didn't anticipate that question, so I don't have it off the top
That's
of my
fine,
head.
maybe we can get our side.
Is that it, Councilor Michelle?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. That concludes water matters for this evening. Okay, getting back to delegations and petitions, item G2, Oliver Tourism Association update. Carol, you're into the podium.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Just for me. And yeah, just set it as a new slide.
Thanks very much.
There is a pointer here as well.
That's excellent.
Point there, click the slides back and forth. There.
Okay.
Go up to the top slideshow, begin slideshow.
My name is Carol Sheridan, and I'm the treasurer of the Oliver Tourism Association.
I'm Danielle Hutton, and I am a member of Rockbridge.
I'd also like to introduce two other board members, Lindsay Ogden and Lavina Johal, who is the secretary. I'll buy a glass of wine for that. Thank you very much for having us. So as part of our agreement, we like to come and provide you with a bit of an update on who we are and what we've been up to. So I'd like to do that for you today, and we also do have a funding request for you. So, it works. Who we are. So we are basically functioning as a small DMO, a Destination Marketing Association, although we are unaccredited. We provide tourism services and marketing to our membership and the community of Oliver and surrounding area. So we have our board of directors is elected by our members at the AGM each year. This year we have a really great group of dynamic volunteers with all different experiences and backgrounds. And Jennifer Busman is our chair, Jill Lawson is our vice chair, that's better. Ravina, our secretary, myself, Danelle Campbell, Chris, and Lindsay. We also have a visitor experience manager, our staff, Rhoda Brooks. And a summer student this year and last year has been Simi Gill. And we also this year were able to have a 10-month contract with an executive director. Her name was Jen Nelson. That contract has ended. And we also have a fantastic group of volunteers. This is our new mission, fresh off the press. Through leadership and support, the Oliver Tourism Association fosters and promotes responsible, authentic tourism experiences year-round, motivating travelers from near and far to visit sooner, stay longer, and return more often. So really quickly, we operate the visitor center. Our job is to identify and promote different tourism experiences in Oliver. We support the initiatives of our stakeholders, our partners, our members. We market the destination brand, Canada's Wine Capital. We do this through the production and distribution of the Oliver Experience Guide, through our website, social media, and also lots of partnership promotions up and down the valley. And of course, we are the producers of the Festival of the Grape and Cask and Keg, our signature events. If council would like, we could, we're always open to send more information. If you'd like to see our third quarter budget, for example, I could get that to you, just because I'm sure it'll come up. Currently, these are our funding sources. So the largest funding source right now, secure funding, is from the town and the RDOS grant and aid. for the use of the visitor center and the fee-for-service agreement that we have with the town of Oliver and RDOS. We also have a small Tourism BC fee-for-service for operating the visitor center. And the rest of our revenues and our funding comes from things that we do ourselves. So the Festival of the Grape and Cask and Keg is a revenue generating event. Although I could talk to you for hours about that and how it's really, when you take all the time it takes to put that event on, it's a big resource taker, that's for sure, but a fabulous event that we are so happy to produce. We do apply for student grants, we apply for project grants, we sell ads in our experience guide, we have fees for membership. I think right now we're around 160 members, something like that. We have some merchandise that we sell out of our visitor center, promoting the Canada's Wine Capital. And then we also have racking fees for people that want to put their brochures and their maps in the visitor center. So that together brings us the operating funds that we need to do our operation. So things are changing. These are something that we are learning as board members, that we're competing more than ever for visitor traffic with our neighboring communities. So it's really important for us to continue to develop and promote new tourism experiences. Our visitor center numbers are down significantly, we think, and we feel like there's a couple reasons for that. Obviously, there are certain things affecting our region, such as fire season and other types of weather that we can't control. Also, we think this is stats of people coming in the visitor center, of course, right? So some of the things that we're seeing is people seeking out information about tourism experiences in Oliver in different ways. They don't just walk into your center anymore. They're looking on your website, they're looking through social media, they're looking in your experience guide. But still, a significant number of parties. So, 9,357 visitors to date this year have come in. That's almost 5,000 parties that our staff and volunteers are visiting with and promoting Oliver to. So we did carry out our tradition this year, our long time Oliver tradition of having the Festival of the Grape. So it's not a very nice day this year. I'm not sure if any of you were there, but of course you were all there. All of you. Just under 2,800 tickets were sold. We had more than that on the site. Over 50 wineries participated. We had lots of vendors, we had lots of food. It was a fabulous event. The spirit was alive and well. Our Oliver Cask and Keg Festival, we increased our attendance by over 30% this year with over 800 people in attendance. And a lot of people decided to come and spend the entire weekend, not just come in on the Sunday and go home, but come in on the Saturday or the Friday, do the event at Hester Creek, come to Cask and Keg, go to Festival of the Grape, stay longer. We also support several other events. We support the Oliver Asturias Winery Association events. We support the Oliver Roots and Fruits Expo and the Rock and Roll Picnic. We also support the Downtown Art Extravaganza, the Art Walk, Winter and Wine Country, and the Oliver Christmas Light Up. This is one of our biggest accomplishments this year, I think, was engaging with people through social media. So we are now at almost 1,600 fans with our Facebook page, but what we're really seeing is the post engagements are really going up. So especially things like Festival of the Grape, we have a lot more people talking about us on Facebook. Similar with Twitter, we are up over last year with almost 2,600 followers. And on our Instagram, this is up 500%. And we just hit over 1,000 followers today. So Instagram is where it's at, and what I'm really proud of with our Instagram account, if you're familiar with Instagram, is it's a photo-based social media account, and all of our photos are authentic experiences. There are no stock photos anywhere on Instagram. Every single photo that we share is a true experience, and I think that's really resonating with people. We also communicate with our members through newsletters and other emails. We do a bragging of beef, where we ask people to come and hear about us. We have our AGM, and we also communicate through our Tourism Advisory Council. A couple of things to mention is that some of the things that we're finding is that the cost of operating the visitor center and marketing tourism opportunities is increasing. Sometimes we used to get a lot of grants to help us with that. The number and the value of those provincial and industry-specific grants are decreasing or are not available to us anymore. I know this year especially there were a couple tours at Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association projects that we weren't able to get because we didn't have the seed money, we didn't have the resources to buy in, because you have to have a certain amount of money to buy into those regional projects, and we just didn't have enough budget to do that. So some of the things to tell you about, so this year our top accomplishments, our visitor experience guide, we distributed 30,000 of our visitor experience guides all over the province, and they are all gone. People love them. It was the one with Rick Mercer on the cover at Festival of Grape, very popular guide with lots of amazing information. Ravina and a great crew of our board are working on our new guide right now. We did some really great surveys. We did one with a local survey, we did a stakeholder survey, and we did a visitor survey. And we had almost 400 respondents on those surveys. That's a very good number for us, I think, in a small community. And I want to tell you what they said. 62% of those respondents said that the most important factor to consider when looking to increase tourism was the visitor's likelihood to return or recommend Oliver, which completely meets our mission and our strategic goals. 23 said that it was the visitor's ability to contribute to the local economy, which of course we're trying to support our member businesses by helping bring people and keeping them here longer. Also, there was a question about what percentage of Oliver's economy they believe is based in tourism, and the locals thought it was around 49%, but when we talked to the stakeholders who actually have tourism businesses, their answer was 67%. 67% of our stakeholder businesses, that's their primary focus is tourism. So it's really good to have us being able to support them. We did a really exciting Seekers Media Tour in the spring and fall, which really increased our engagement in social media. We did a high quality Festival of the Grape. We did some really great new regional marketing, Summerland, Kelowna, Vernon, and us all partnered together to, through the DBC, Destination British Columbia, to do a cross promotion media, so getting people to come to our communities and doing a lot of social media posting about that. And some of the top priorities that we have established, we really need to look at our staff structure. It's apparent to us now that the way things are changing, and that we need to look at how we're offering our services, and that we believe that a dedicated employee who's not responsible for the visitor center, but more responsible to execute the priorities of our organization. So that would include leveraging funding we already receive from our partners like yourselves, getting additional grants, forming new partnerships, and more importantly, working towards an actual DMO accreditation so that we would be a recognized destination marketing organization with the province. So our top priorities would be that staff structure, hiring that executive director, modernizing our visitor experience strategy, looking at our marketing plan, our relationship with the Arts Council, promoting and recognizing the successes of our member businesses, and DMO accreditation, and of course financial security. We'd like to move forward and be as successful as possible. Make you all proud. Are there any questions?
Questions? Okay, Councillor Benjamin.
Okay. I'm trying to read my, this is my note. My last presentation of this one. This staff person that you're looking to hire, I assume in the new year, would that be kind of like a permanent version then of the sort of 10-month contract that just ended?
It would be. So we are looking to, as Carol said, if we restructure our employee positioning, then we look at what we're doing right now with the visitor center, our hours, how we're giving that experience to people coming. And then our executive director would have those roles plus the roles that Carol has talked about, getting us a DMO accreditation, applying for more grants, getting the board moving forward, because we're all volunteers, so we need a paid person to really do all that background work so that we can make the decisions and make the steps forward.
Just to add to that, if I may, you know, we're doing the work that these other DMOs are doing. Like you look at Tourism Penticton or Tourism Kelowna, Destination Osoyoos, we are doing as much as any of those organizations from a volunteer board perspective with a visitor center manager basically. And for us to really, really bring the world to Oliver like we know that everybody wants us to do, we need to, you know, we need to amp up the level of staff service that we have in order to do that. I forgot to ask. I forgot to make my ask. Can I go back? So we are looking at making these important changes to how we do business and be more strategic with our priorities. We really want to maximize what we're bringing to our members and to you, our stakeholders, our partners. So what we're asking for, we have a fee-for-service agreement. That fee-for-service agreement goes until the end of next year. We're looking forward to sitting down with you and talking about that fee-for-service agreement and hopefully continuing that fee-for-service agreement. In the interim, knowing that we have these goals that we'd like to reach, that we're trying to secure more funding for, we were wondering if we could have a 3% per annum increase to our current fee-for-service agreement. So we've had fee-for-service agreements since 2015. I believe that we haven't had an increase in 6 years. So we were hoping that to go retroactive to the start of 2017 and just add a 3% onto each year. My math was wrong also in my letter. It's 25.96.36 is what we're asking for 2019, which would cover all 3 years. And we just really hope you could help us out, and we thank you for your continued support. Not to cut questions, but gotta get that in there.
Thank you, Your Worship. So is the additional funding, is this to secure a new executive director, or is that?
That would be part of it. We certainly have, an annual budget. Certain things, like I said, some of the bigger tourism funding we used to get for projects is no longer there for us, so we're trying to replace those funds with other things in 2019. Also, the Festival of the Grape and other big projects that we work on, I think right now it's a little askew of what it costs to put it on and what the revenue is going to be bringing in. So we were basically counting on that revenue to hire that executive director, and we realize now that that's not a feasible solution. The revenue that comes in Festival of the Grape is a big deal for our organization. It carries us through a lot of things, but if you're going to hire an executive director, it needs to be a competitive position and not a 9 or a 10-month part-time contract. We're looking for a full-time executive director. So yes, no problem. It would go to that.
Councilor Mattis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Few questions. What is your budget cycle? Is it January, December? So that dovetails with our budget cycle. Are you asking the RUS, because they also fund your organization, would you be asking them for equivalent funds?
Ask.
So because there's two parts, there's the part that we pay directly, and then there's also a part that we pay half of with the RUS. So in essence, 3/4 of it comes from the town, if I understood it correctly. For myself, I would need a better idea of the fee for service. What are we paying for?
I can tell you that.
What are we getting? Also would like to know your budget to see where this money fits into your budget for a better understanding. I myself am against opening up the contract for the past and adding money for the, you know, when you entered into the contract with us, everyone understood at that time where we were going. I certainly would be more than willing to look at opening it up for the final year, or maybe the final year and an extension beyond that as part of our budget cycle. But at this point, it's not something we can do without discussing it at our own budget level.
Councilor Schwartzberg.
Thank you, Worship. Carol, I'm sorry, you ran that number by me real fast. Was that 3,000 or 30,000?
It's $2,596.
$2,596.
Yeah.
So you'd be asking from that for both ourselves and the RDOS.
Correct.
And that's for the total?
That's for all 3 years.
All 3 years, so that's $3,700 from us, roughly. If you took our $2,500 and half of the RDOS's part, which we pay half of the RUS's part.
Okay, so, interesting. Right now, our budget shows 28,000 from each organization. I didn't know that the RDOS only paid half of that 28,000.
Yeah.
We thought we got 56, half from you, half from the RDOS. And then we also get a grant and aid from the town, in addition to that. So we were only basing this on the 28,000 that you provide.
Right, the grant and aid from the town is just for the lease on the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like.
So we don't wanna touch that at all.
Yeah, I don't wanna mess with
No.
that. Okay. Understood.
We don't wanna touch that, that's good.
Councillor Ventimiglia?
I agree with Councillor Mattis. I think this is a conversation that we probably, seeing as our sort of budget cycles align, it's a conversation that we should have more in depth as we go into our budget conversations, which are gonna be happening shortly. I guess just kind of in light of the fact that some of the other funding sources seem to be drying up or shrinking or not available, I'm just gonna throw this out there. We now have a hotel in Oliver, and one of the murmurs that I've heard in the street is, well, maybe now we can go for the hotel tax, just like Missy's. Is that something that you've?
Yeah, the first step is DMO accreditation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we would definitely
And
try to that.
And how far are you off of DMO accreditation?
It's just time, I think.
It's time and it's time and dedication. So to become a DMO, there is a lot of paperwork. We would basically need a grant writer because it's about that kind of in depth. As individuals with businesses and families, we don't have the time to dedicate to that right now, even though we're trying. I've met with Larry Olson, who's from the government. I've met with Kelly Glazer from Destination Soyuz. We're trying to find a path to that as much as we can, and getting moving on that regardless of what happens with an executive director. That is a priority for us, and an MRDT would help us immensely. So that is a priority. It's just going to take a lot of work.
I have just a couple comments. I agree with Councillor Mattis and Ventimiglia. I think we should discuss this at our budget discussions coming up in early January. And the only other question I have for you, just a query, is just on what are you working on a new event for Oliver? I know through the downtown revitalization plan and looking at revitalization of Main Street, Station Street, there was also discussion that there was a need for another event in Oliver, and I'm wondering if you're working on anything, or what your strategies are as far as bringing something maybe here in the winter time. Now that we have a hotel here, I'm not sure, but
100%. So last year, years prior to last year, we did an event called the Rosé Revolution. Then last year we did it as Be Merry, and that was at Frank Venables Theatre. This year it didn't work out as beneficial last year, so UA took it over this year and had it this last week. We are looking to do a winter event. It is one of our top priorities. We just had a strategic planning session where we talked about a few different ideas, and we really want to focus on being a four-season destination. And there are so many things that go on in the summer. We understand and are working very hard at trying to figure out how to promote something in town in those winter months, incorporate the hotel, incorporate Baldy, get people here for a weekend, 5 days, whatever we can get them here for, and promote our town that way.
Also to add to that, the events, we want to support events, and we want to support events of our member businesses. Whether or not the board rolls up their sleeves and plans another event ourselves may not be the best use of our resources at this time. But we sit on the Downtown Revitalization Committee and are very excited about continuing the work with the Downtown Revitalization Committee now that the rebrand is over. And Station Street is very exciting, and we have members that have businesses on there. I know the Art Walk is planning to move in that direction, I think, and we would support them 100% right from the visitor center, because that's Station Street. So yeah, we're excited about that. There's also some other things floating around about the roots and fruits and encompassing Station Street on that as well. So tourism will be there to support that.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, lady. Don't go anywhere, girl.
Okay, stay.
Moving to item G3, Oliver Parks and Recreation Society. Carol is here to talk about community recreation infrastructure grant and the pocket ashtray project.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd also like to introduce Sheila Lang, who is the chair of Oliver Parks and Recreation. Thank you for being here, Sheila. We sent a letter to Mayor and Council in October. Our Oliver Arena is turning 50 next year and is starting to show its age. There are some major improvements that are required, and we've been planning for those, and we've had the support of the town and the RDOS in the planning of getting specifically the brine lines and the concrete slab replaced. When you start actually putting the dollars and cents to that project and getting the design done, you realize that that also means the boards are coming out, the boards are no longer, we'll have to have new boards, and then you start thinking, okay, those player boxes aren't really efficient anymore, the bleachers are made of wood. There's a lot of things that when you look at an old building that you want to sort of look at and try to take care of. Then comes in the infrastructure grant announcement from the federal government. So the Canadian and BC government announced the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. And so what we would like to do is apply for funding for the arena improvements through the Community Culture and Recreation stream. This stream will distribute up to $134 million in funding towards public infrastructure projects that create improved access to or increased quality of cultural, recreational, or community infrastructure for Canadians. We believe that this project is a perfect fit for this stream. Applications are welcomed from municipalities and regional districts. The deadline for applications is January 23rd. So our not-for-profit organization, the society, is that. It's a little bit gray because we do receive municipal funding, but in this particular situation, we could apply. We're eligible for 65% of the total cost of the project. However, it would be 73.3% if this application came from municipality or the regional district. So when you're talking about a project that could be upwards of $3 million, that extra 15% is a big number. So we're coming basically to ask for that support. Also, another item of concern for us is that if the town of Oliver was going to submit a project application under the same stream, it would be highly unlikely that both of our applications would be successful. So I'm here today to I guess, share in the fact that the Oliver Arena is an integral part of life and culture in our community, and has been for a really long time. Bringing people together for sport, physical activity, social inclusion, employment, entertainment for almost 50 years. So we'd like to request confirmation, and this letter was sent to the RDOS as well, that the town of Oliver or the RDOS will make an application through one of the funding streams for this project. And obviously it's a lot of work to put together a grant application, so we just want to know where we're going with it so we can get it done.
Thank you for your presentation. I read through the letter that you submitted, and I just wanted to make sure that grant that you want to apply for is for the full, like up to $4 million, the big dream project,
Yeah.
not just the brine lines and the.
Right. So after sorry, I just want to make sure that it's okay. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No,
Is that your question?
yeah,
Okay.
that's
The overall work that needs to be done doesn't just include, we had, I sort of skipped over that part in the letter, but I think you're aware that we did a facility condition audit or a life assessment, a life cycle assessment of the arena in 2017. So the life expectancy of the structure itself is like 75 years. So we've got 25 years for sure that building will be okay. The problem is that a lot of the features are prematurely failing, and because the building is old, it is not accessible in any way. It is not barrier-free compliant. There are probably things that once we start taking the concretes and the slab out, and you start doing any construction, certain things will no longer be to code. So we're trying to basically deal with all of those things, because once you start ripping a certain portion out, you kind of have to do it all, or you won't be able to do a part of it. So that's why we want to all encompass it. So I'm working with Carskadden, Stokes, and McDonald on a full concept design and quantity survey costing on what it would cost to not just do the brine lines and slab, but basically the entire bowl of the arena. And we've actually gone for some big dream stuff. I mean, the arena is not regulation size. We'd like it to be a regulation size arena. If we ever have the hope of attracting a junior B team or maybe some larger scale stuff for the arena, we'd like to be able to do that. So that would be necessary to extend the actual size of the building as well. And I can't tell you, probably the one dream I've been asked by seniors since I started here in 2010 was, can you give us an indoor walking facility? And so we're gonna go for it, right? We're gonna try to put that in the design and have a mezzanine with a walking track. So basically the grant is for the big picture. The other process which we have as a society have committed to going into is a borrowing process, so we can just get the brine lines and slab done because that's what's necessary. But all of it, you can't really have some of it without the other, and it's a 50-year-old building, so I think it becomes a question of if this is an opportunity from the government to pay for it all, or not pay for it all, but pay for 75% of it, that's significant. Yeah.
Councillor Schwarzenberg?
That's what I was hoping to hear, because I absolutely bought into the big deal picture when we all attended that sort of budget and information session level.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed in your letter here that the rural and northern community infrastructure stream is 75%, but it says to communities with less than 5,000 population, it is up to 100% of eligible costs. So I was wondering why you chose the other stream instead of the rural and northern community stream. And then I've got a question for the CAO.
My only answer to that is we are asking for the application to go under any stream. It would make a lot of sense to go for the 100%. I actually believe that there might have been a project that the town of Baltimore was going to apply for under the rural stream, and that's why I didn't ask for it.
Okay, so that's my question. That's one of my questions to the CAO is, do we have a project under either one of these streams?
We are looking at putting one under the 100% eligible cost for the sewer system. Some work that has to be done in the sewer system.
Okay, and my other question was, because the RDOS is the funder, we put our money to the RDOS and they actually fund. Is it the RDOS that has to supply this letter, or do we supply the letter?
It would be more likely for the RDOS to submit the application on behalf of the society, because that's the funding goes through the RDOS for the society, and then they would manage that grant application on their behalf.
So if we were to write a letter of support, we'd be writing it to the Community Cultural Infrastructure Program and to the RDOS, or you'd have two letters of support, one from us and one from the RDOS. But the RDOS would be the one who submits the application. Is that correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. The RDOS received this letter as well, and they are meeting, I don't believe until December 13th, but we have about this issue, but we have asked them to make the application. I believe they have 6 applications that they're thinking about making, but because they're not making one for all of it, for Area C, it will probably be, that's how they would do it, and then they would manage the funds when they came in. But that decision would be made at the RDOS table, which the town is a part of, so we wanted to present to both parties.
Councillor Matz.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the CAO, could you give us a little more information on the competing funding, the sewer project you mentioned? Was that in the budget that we just dealt with a week ago, or is that something in the future?
I can't give you the full details on that at this point in time. I will have to talk to Sean because we were in discussions with True engineering, and there was a number we were looking at roads and sewer and water, and they felt that the sewer, application would be the strongest. So I will get that information and pass it on.
So I guess the next question would be, once we have that information, we could make a better decision as a council, which route we would choose to support one way or the other. Does the 10th, I think that's our next meeting, does that work for you?
Yeah. Definitely.
Any more questions? Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Richard. What is, I'm just trying to find it here, how urgent is the slab and the brine lines? Like how many years do you have before it's really critical? Or
Less than one.
Yeah.
Councillor Grice, we actually are not confident that we can make it through another season at this point. It's urgent. We repair between 6 and 12 brine lines every year, and we've been really lucky that they're all breaking right at the boards, and we're finding them before we put the ice in. We can't be confident that there wouldn't be a brine line that would break during the season at this point. We just don't know.
And are there any health hazards associated with that? Or
No, because brine is the cooling agent. Ammonia is what cools the brine. So if that's what you're referring to, the ammonia, we are in good shape with our ammonia plant. We are doing very well. So that part is all new. We've replaced all that in 2014. So and those units have 25-year life. So we're just looking at the actual method of cooling the ice surface.
That's good. That's good news that you just replaced your ammonia system.
Yes.
Did you have WorkSafe and the technical BC come through?
Oh yes, sir.
Yeah. Not gonna have a Fernie in all water. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have any more comments. I would agree that the RDOS should help them put in the application. If they're, if I understand correctly, they're the ones that actually own the buildings as well.
They do own the arena.
So that would be good for them to put the application in with our support.
Yeah, we were, for the most part, wanting to inform you of what we'd like to do, and also just be clear that we weren't going to be competing with another project. It's a big project for us.
If I may. So just to be clear though, if the regional district applies, as I think we all understand that they need to, if they're applying for 6 other projects or 5 other projects as well, you don't see that as competing interest if we're the
No.
only Oliver specific?
Yeah, it's okay. So in the eligibility criteria, it's okay to have a different project for each area. So Area C would be its own project area, so there would be no issues there.
Okay, well, we do have a board meeting next Thursday, so we'll be happy for your support.
Great.
Carol, there was another item.
Yep.
Yeah.
This will be quick.
Okay.
If I may, pass that around if you like.
Do we have the picture of this thing?
We've got it on our.
You've got it? Okay, perfect. Just so you can see the draft of what we'd like to print up. So the purpose of this is just to bring a proposal. Back in 2017, we were asked to provide comment to the town regarding smoking in public places as part of the new development of the bylaw. We did, and council adopted that smoke-free bylaw in July of 2018. And one of the things that was indicated to Parks and Rec was that the town's intent was to educate the public as much as possible, and that we would be using signage and maybe some other methods to do that. So in July, we brainstormed some ideas on how to get the message out about the new bylaw, the non-smoking bylaw. And in August, at the society meeting, we had quite a lot of discussion about cigarette disposal in parks. So is this the right time to start adding ashtrays to facilities that didn't previously have them when you're trying to eliminate smoking in those public facilities? So we were trying to brainstorm ways of saying, how can we get people to A, stop smoking in those facilities, and B, not drop their butts on the ground, because it's super gross. So at the September meeting of the society, I presented an idea about a new product I've seen since called a pocket ashtray, which is being circulated. And actually, if you don't mind, I'll pass it to the gallery so they can all see too. It's a pocket ashtray. So the pocket ashtray is being used in other communities as a way to limit littering of cigarette butts, as well as reduce the chance of wildfires, which could be caused from people dropping their butts. And not just from cigarettes, but cannabis products as well. So the main sort of benefits of the pocket ashtray is that they are air sealed. So when you drop the butt in there, it seals the air. It can no longer combust, and it doesn't smell. You can recycle those butts now through this program, the Brain Garden program. So basically, butts would be collected. Somebody could, either collect them themselves and send them back, and that money that's used for recycling the butts gets donated to the wildfire prevention programs. Or what we're planning to do from the society is put these butt recycle bins at some of our public facilities, so people can collect the butts in their ashtray and then dump them out in there, and then we'll collect them and then we'll send them back to the Brain Garden and make the donation to the wildfire thing. So, so what we're looking for is some support from the town of Oliver. So the mock-up that I provided, some of the messaging that we would have on ours would be to keep Oliver clean. It's a reusable pocket ashtray. It would have the Town of Oliver, Canada's Wine Capital, and their website on the front, which would draw people to where they can find out about the bylaw. And then Oliver Parks and Recreation on the back, who manages the parks facilities, where we'd be sort of trying to get these out to. It also has how to quit smoking, a link on how to get people to HealthLink BC, quit smoking. And the cost for 1,000 units is $1,000. And we would like to share the cost with you. The society would like to share the cost with you and arm by law enforcement with 1,000 units for next season.
Questions?
I didn't see the RDOS logo on those. I'm wondering why they're not part of the cost sharing. Not that it's huge dollars, but again, we, similar to the Tourism Association, in that 50% is $1,000, but we also pay 50% of the other dollar, half of the dollar. So in essence, you're asking for 75% from us and 25% from.
To be honest, the reason why I didn't go to the RDOS is because the bylaw is yours. Therefore, the tools to help bylaw enforcement would belong to the town of Oliver, but we can absolutely make that request to the RDOS.
And second question would be through to the administration. Would this fall under potentially a grant and aid application?
I shall defer to the corporate officer.
Through the worship, your worship too, Councilor Mattis. In reviewing the bylaw enforcement budget, I feel that there's money in our bylaw enforcement budget, because I see it as we're enforcing our smoke-free bylaw. So later on in the report, in our correspondence report, I do have a choice for you to make with allocating to the bylaw enforcement budget for our half of the share.
Thank you. I kind of had the same thought, but it makes total sense that it's our bylaw, so we should be participating in enforcing it. My question is more about these portable, what are they called?
Pocket ashtrays.
Mm-hmm. How long have these things been around? How long has this recycling program been around, this whole concept?
Yeah, the concept started in 2016. The ashtrays are making their way across the country, and actually where it started was in Europe. So the bigger, like London and some of the bigger urban centers are using them. The ashtray part of it, but then Jack Elliman, who was the founder of Brain Garden in Canada, took it that one step further. He was tired of seeing wildfires created by people tossing their butts out the window and thought, what can I do about this? And so he thought if people were all packing around these things, they could just put their cigarette butts or their roaches or whatever in there. just saying it, cannabis is now out there. It's just, we just want to prevent people from dropping combustibles out in the parks, and also just not to be having them. So if bylaw was to approach somebody who was smoking somewhere that they shouldn't be, they can say, hey, not sure if you're aware of the bylaw, you can find it at this website, and if you just put your butt in there, it's going to go out, and we can provide some information there. So it's like a gift, but also an educational tool. Right.
Councilor Riss.
Thank you, Richard. I just want to say I love this idea. I think it's really smart. I think it's a really simple solution. I like the branding opportunity, because I think for the town to look like they're at the forefront of this wildfire prevention, I think it's really smart. I do wonder though, because I feel like we'll run through our 1,000 if you are looking at any other advertising or marketing opportunities for other businesses to be able to brand these.
I hadn't thought of that, but I am looking through Interior Health's grant opportunities to see if we could get some through them, because if we really go heavy on the smoking cessation message that's in them, we might be able to. I had thought of that. I hadn't thought of selling ads on them, but that's a good idea. Thank you.
Councillor Mattis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, through the staff, I heard mention of a staff report, which, is this coming to us at a later date? Is it something that we can act on now? I never actually saw it.
It's in the correspondence.
Report to us is in correspondence.
CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just do a clarification on that. It's, this particular item is attached to the correspondence report with options for council to make towards providing support or not.
Would that not be a regular agenda item?
At the time that we received the information, it was correspondence, and when we went to do the agenda, we invited Ms. Sheridan in to speak to a number of things, and she felt that this was one of the ones that she would like to speak to council about.
Councillor Antonino.
I don't know, I've got it in front of me right now, if it's possible we could, are we able to pull it out and make a motion now?
Do it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion. So the motion is that council may wish to share the cost with Oliver Parks and Recreation to purchase 1,000 potash training units at a cost of $1,000 with the shared cost of $500 allocated to the bylaw enforcement budget.
Second, Councillor Price. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Where's the other
Councillor Mattis.
500 coming from?
From Oliver Parks and Recreation.
Oh, okay.
Seeing no further discussion, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Actually, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Those receptacles.
Yes.
How big of a budget item is that?
I am currently working on that because that is the part that hasn't been developed yet. So the ashtrays are everywhere, but Jack is developing the butt bins, he's calling them. And they're gonna be like heavy duty cans that will have something that opens, you can pull the butts out of them and then box them up and send them. Like he'll send, you can actually print off free shipping labels anytime right now if you wanna recycle butts and send them on the Brain Garden website. So I'm costing them out. But I'm thinking if it's 1,000 units for $1,000 of the ashtrays, I'm fairly positive they're going to be affordable because he wants to get them out there. Yeah. And now that would be an advertising opportunity, smacking someone's label right on that. But being sponsored by, right? Yeah.
And
Councillor Mattis.
thank you. And I guess the idea behind recycling, obviously, it's better for the environment, but in the interim, people can still just throw them out, and at least they're not
Right. Right.
or on the street.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Moving to business arising out of prior minutes, item H1, draft council policy, employee code of conduct. I'll refer to the CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you is to provide additional information with respect to council's direction at the November 13th council meeting and to present the draft employee code of conduct policy for council's consideration. Further to council's direction from November 13th, staff have had an opportunity to review the request with regards to disclosure of other employment and also employee representation. Outside the working hours, employees have the right to privacy, and they're not obligated to disclose other employment unless there's a conflict of interest in performing their job duties. The policy addresses this within section 4 of the conflict of interest. So they would have to come forward at that, to provide us with a conflict at that point in time. With employee representation, we have a contract with CUPE, which outlines the rights of union employees to have union representation. It's a requirement of the CUPE agreement. So that's been included in the code of conduct just to ensure union members understand that union representation applies to any enforcement coming out of the non-compliance of the policy. Exempt personnel, we all have contracts with the town itself, and there is no right to representation. Therefore, it wasn't included within the policy. However, any exempt employee does have the independent right to seek representation if they so choose to. Given the above information, it's staff recommendation that the policy not be amended to require the disclosure of other employment or to include the right for representation for exempt employees. Council's options are, as you can adopt the policy as presented, you can refer it back to staff for additional changes, or you can consider not adopting the policy. The recommendation before council is that council adopt the employee code of conduct as presented in the Chief Administrative Officer's report dated November 21st, 2018.
Questions? Seeing none, do I have a mover of the motion? Councilor Mattis, second, Councilor Schwarzenberger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item H2, joint services budget, notice of motion. From the notice of motion from Councilor Mattis at the previous meeting, refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report in front of you is to provide additional information for your discussion of the notice of motion presented by Councilor Mattis. It's just here for information. It was requested that staff provide additional information with respect to the RDOS budgeting protocols and to also determine if a member of council could be appointed to the Frank Venables Theatre Operating Society. Staff spoke with the RDOS Manager of Financial Services and was advised that due to the tight turnaround between the election and the budget preparation, there had not been a meeting with the board representatives for the joint services and himself. It was the Manager of Financial Services had assumed that the board members would have been advised by the societies that are providing the services of their ask. I did let him know that not necessarily the board representative sits on the different committees, so he wasn't aware of that. And he also indicated that a meeting with board representatives on those shared services would be considered going forward with future RDOS budgets. There was a question with regards to the Frank Venables Society, and just for clarification for council, in the budget that comparative requisition that we received from the RDOS under the Town and Regional District Director determined budgets, there's two line items for the Frank Venables Auditorium. One is the Frank Venables Auditorium and the other is the Venables Theatre Service. And I have asked for some better clarification with regards to those two items. The Frank Venables Auditorium is actually the amount that is a loan payment that was brought about through a referendum for building, and so there's really no control over that amount of funds. It has to be paid through the MFA borrowing. So he's going to put loan repayment next to that line item, just so in the future everybody's aware of what that one is. And then the other one is the actual services, the Frank Venables Theatre. And the Venables Theatre Service is the actual operating line item for the theatre. I did look through the Society Act for the Oliver Theatre, and upon the review, the membership is completed democratically through application and election by the members of the society, and that's done so that they're eligible for gaming grants, etc. It has to be, to be eligible, they have to be democratically chosen by its voting membership. So that's the information I have for you for your continued discussion on the resolution going forward, or notice of motion.
I'll just raise a couple of points. I believe that the structure there is the same as the structure at the Heritage Society, and yet we have an appointee on that board. Although it's a non-voting, the town does have representation on the Heritage Board. And it is the same type of structure, so I'm not sure why we couldn't have it here as well. All that aside, I've recognized through the discussion that there's not much appetite for council to have a level of oversight at this table. I recognize that when you're sitting at a different table, that is a different level of responsibilities. I noticed that as a result of all of this, that we seem to have gotten all of the budgets in front of us through the correspondence in the last week. For myself, it raises many questions. Unfortunately, I'm hearing that council does not want the opportunity for councillors to ask those questions until after the budgets are approved, which is kind of the horse after the cart, so to speak. So I believe that there is a way for council to have oversight, and that it's our responsibility at this table to have oversight for the taxation of the people that we represent. That may change at the RDOS when you're looking at broader budgets for the RDOS, but it doesn't change our responsibilities here. So I'll leave it with that.
Any other comments? Councillor Schwarzenberg?
Yeah, I'm speaking for myself. The one part of Councillor Mattis's notice of motion that I do agree with is that it's nice to see beforehand what burden different people are putting on our taxpayers. So, and there is always some confusing things that come up. The RDOS budget for Parks and Rec is a perfect society. Those numbers don't seem to add up to me, and I don't understand how they're putting forward a 19% increase when Parks and Rec is putting forward a 0% increase for operating that we did. So those are some things that maybe Councillor Ventimiglia can look into as she sits at the board table. But it is, I think it would be prudent. I understand there's a new financial administrator at the RDOS board, and he kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool right at the wrong time of the year. So, but I think going forward, it would be very good if we got to see those budget requests, as Councillor Mattis said, sometime before they're actually already approved. So we can at least know. We may not have any authority to change them or ask our RDOS director to go one way or another, because they have to be amenable to change when they're at the table. But it's always good for us to see what's happening on those shared services that we pay into.
Councillor Virginia?
So I would basically just like to reiterate what Councillor Schwarzenberg said. I've given this one a lot of thought, and I think that's the portion of the notice of motion that I agree with as well. And now I've lost it in front of me. Basically that we be given the opportunity as a council to hear from our joint service groups at a committee of the whole meeting or something before the budget's presented to the regional district. And again, more just for an information session, so that we as council are aware of what's coming forward, even just in our community in general, right? To know what's going on at the theater and know what's going on at Heritage. We have heard from most of those groups fairly consistently over the 4 years that I've been here, but not always. So if we had something a little more formalized, it might help out. Yeah, and when things get to the regional district, as we're finding out from, I sat through my first day of budgets last week, second day coming up this Friday. Things don't look the same on their forms that they do on the forms that are submitted, so it gets confusing anyway. But at least if we, I just think back to the first couple of years that I was on council, and I found it really odd that I had the opportunity to participate in the Parks and Recs discussions and be a part of that budget process. but then that's where it stopped, and then it went off to the regional district, and as a council, we weren't really kind of made aware of the whole thing, so that portion, I don't know if a policy is the right, I'm not sure what the method is to getting those presentations in front of council sort of on a yearly basis at a committee level meeting, but that's cool.
Councilor Mattis?
I guess I have to change, what I read from the rest of council earlier on in the discussion. Although the seconder is not here, I would certainly be willing to change the motion, that was in front of you, at the time, if it would mean better council support to create a policy. And that's what we do here, we create policy and bylaws, okay? I know we sometimes say that we don't need more policies, but if you don't have them, then things fall through the cracks. The reason for the policy is to make sure that they do happen the way that we want them to happen.
So, Councilor Swartzberg?
There is a motion, is that a motion or just a comment on the board? The council directs staff to communicate with shared service organizations that the town received preliminary budget information prior to submission to the RDOS moving forward into 2019. Well, I wouldn't say just 2019, I would just say moving forward in each budget cycle or something like that. But
Beginning in 2019?
beginning in 2019 is fabulous.
Beginning in 2018. So we're ready for 2019. Yeah.
Too late.
Okay, too late this year.
Yeah. Is that, does that look after your concerns, Councilor Mattis?
As long as it becomes something that is guaranteed to happen every year, that's what I'm looking for. And, you know, it's basically so that we get a chance, as we did with Parks and Rec, and that we get a chance to look at the heritage budget, and we get a chance as a council to look at the Venables Theater budget, because there's questions that come out of those budgets that our representatives should take back to those organizations and say, hey, council has these concerns, before it goes to the RDOS. And I just throw that out as an example. I look and I see an increase in the Frank Venables 2.5% increase that they're asking for in the budget. It's not a huge amount of money, but at the end of the year they're going to have a $5,600 surplus, and I have to ask, why are we raising taxes to create a surplus when we don't know what the purpose of the surplus is, or any other questions around that? Basic things like that. I see things within the budget where there's major increases in their spending with no indication or explanation and no opportunity for council to say, hey, how are you spending our money? How are you spending the taxpayers' money?
Councilor Ventina?
I guess I forgot that point in my little ramble before. I had a chance to sit with the theater manager and one of the board members, as did Mary Hanson and Director Knoble, and everything that they explained made sense. Part of my sort of thought process over the past couple of weeks has been, I don't think I could explain that as well as it was explained to me, to you, and to the rest of council. So having that presentation made just in front of the group instead of kind of off to the side gives the rest of council the opportunity to ask those questions.
I would weigh in and agree as well. I always like to see what the reason is for significant variances one way or the other, and or capital projects, capital work that a society is doing to buildings, what's happening at the theater, what's happening in the Parks and Recreation buildings, for sure. Councilor Mattis, do you think that motion up there captures what you're looking for? It seems to capture what I would be looking for, as long as we have an opportunity for somebody to come and present that budget to us. It's getting the budget on a spreadsheet just sometimes brings a lot of questions.
Yeah, nice to have somebody answer the whys.
And can we maybe add in, after information, we'll add in and presentation? Preliminary budget information and presentation prior to submission. That goes to them coming to us and presenting their budget to us.
Well, go ahead.
I'll be happy to make that motion.
Seconder? Counselor Schwarzenberger, any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have no committee reports, no development permit variance permits. Moving to bylaws. K1, civic addressing amendment bylaw 1320.04, first, second, and third reading. Seal. Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you this evening is with regard to the civic addressing amendment bylaw 1320.04 to receive council's enactment with the options to receive first, second, and third readings of the civic addressing bylaw. The community charter specifies that council may by law establish and amend street names and house addresses in a municipality. The community charter specifies that this may be done by bylaw and cannot be delegated to staff. I did include the civic addressing map in your report, and I've also printed it off large for you to take a look at. After the substantial completion of the civic addressing back in 2012, it was noted that in future years, subdivisions and changes, that we would just bring the bylaw forward every year or two to add in the most recent addresses. And then this enables us to legally provide the services to those addresses that are not on our bylaw map. So before you this evening is the bylaw, civic addressing amendment bylaw for first, second, and third reading, and adoption would come to the December 10th meeting.
Recommendation.
Do we have a mover? Counselor Brennan? Counselor, what?
So I can read it out if you'd like, but I'm also just happy to move the recommendation that was just read.
Seconder. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item K2, sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 1316.03 and sewer use rate amendment bylaw 1331.04 for first, second, and third reading. CA.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to pass this over to Deputy Finance Officer Ms. Wilson to provide council with an update on this.
Thank you, through the chair. The purpose of this report is to introduce the sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 1360.03 and sewer use rate amendment bylaw 13, oh, that's a typo. This is 1331.04 in the sewer use rate, which is above on the subject. These are prepared in accordance with the special open council meeting on November 20th, where council resolved that they direct staff to prepare sewer user rates and sewer parcel tax rate bylaws based on a 4% increase from 2018 due to operational, capital funding, and future debt obligation needs, with any generated surplus being transferred to the sewer reserves. Based on this resolution, there was different amendments that were made to the capital projects. The first one being the solar array, the STP photovoltaics, or TAIX. This was a capital item that was scheduled for 2018 at 50% grant funding. This project has now been adjusted to 75% grant funding of the $112,500 and the sewer reserves to 25% of $37,500. The next one was the Sawmill Road extension. This project has been moved to 2020 and will be reviewed during the 2019 for an improvement calculation for the properties affected. And the new Sandy dump, this capital project has been moved to 2020 and will be investigated whether there are other options, coin operated, available for this capital item. The options are that council received the report dated to November 21st, and give first three readings to bylaw 133104 and 136003, or that council receive the report dated November 21st and direct staff, I'm sorry, I read that twice, for first three readings to the December 10th meeting for adoption, or that council receive the deputy officer's report dated November 21st for information, and that council direct staff to prepare sewer user rates and sewer tax rates bylaw based on a percentage increase from 2018.
Any questions? Staff's recommendation that council receive the deputy financiers officer's report dated November 21st, 2018 for information, and sewer use rates amendment bylaw 133104 and sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 136005 be read a first, second, and third time. Do I have a mover? Councilor Bentamina, seconded by Councilor Schwarzenberger. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Alright, we have no items under business, so we'll move into correspondence. I think item M1 we've already dealt with. That was the pocket ashtray. Two? Project funding application. Correspondence dated October 26, 2018 from Oliver Parks and Recreation Society regarding Oliver Arena Improvement Project funding application. That was the one where we were going to send it to the regional district to apply on behalf of the Oliver Parks and Recreation. Councilor Mattis?
Through the chair, do we require any motion for staff to communicate?
You will probably want to put one through to provide a letter of support in respect to the project.
So I would make that motion that council provide a letter of support to the Oliver Parks and Recreation Society regarding the Oliver Arena Improvement Project funding application, and that staff requests the regional district of Okanagan Chinook Community to submit the Canada Infrastructure Program grant application for arena improvements on behalf of Oliver Parks and Recreation Society.
Thanks, Councilor Mattis. Seconder, Councilor Bentamina. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So item 2 we've already dealt with. Moving to item 3. Correspondence dated November 21st, 2018 from BC Liquor Distribution Branch General Manager regarding locating a government-operated cannabis retail store in Oliver. Questions? Discussion?
I'll start the ball rolling.
Okay. Councilor Mattis?
I favor opening the market to whoever wishes to enter that market, whether it's the government, as they do in liquor stores, against private industry now, which seems to succeed as a private industry. I'm not sure it's council's role to designate or pick one particular person or outlet or style over another person, outlet or style, whether it be the federal government going into business, a multinational conglomerate going into business, or your local mom and pop shop, so to speak. So I would favor sending a letter to the province saying, yes, we would more than welcome for them to come and fill one of the holes on our main street.
I can say something first. Councilor Bentamina?
We all put our hands up at the same time, so we'll go around the table. We've had these conversations like kind of a little bit as things have progressed over the last couple of months. I personally kind of like the conversation that's going on in Vesuvius, where they're limiting retail to, well, basically they're keeping government retail outlets out of the community. I think when we first had our conversations, we didn't even realize that was going to be a possibility, but we're at the stage now where we have final say on who comes in. That being said, the request is to extend an invitation to the BC Liquor Distribution Branch to discuss the possibility of locating a government-operated cannabis retail store in Oliver, and I would not be opposed to that at all. it doesn't hurt to have the conversation.
Councilor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Worship. I think that this letter was sent to every town or city in the province that has a liquor store. So I don't think it, I don't think it is huge weight, but I certainly would not, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to having a government-operated cannabis retail store in Oliver. I think they, more than just about anyone else, know how to deal with restricted products. They would employ local people at union wages, and as Councilor Mattis said, perhaps fill a hole in our downtown core that needs filling. So I would be in favor of sending a letter with our endorsement for this, or an invitation, as it were.
Councilor Grace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn about this one because I mean, my inclination is to support small businesses in our town, but at the same time, if we restrict, a government cannabis store coming in, I mean, what's to say we're not going to have some large corporation, swoop in and have a monopoly on the market as well. So, I mean, I think it's always good to have a discussion and more information. So I'd certainly be open as well to hear what they have to say.
A couple questions for CEO. What do we have in place for zoning as that this conversation happened before the election? So I'm curious on that. I'm curious to make sure that we're not, like, I don't know if we decided, as the town decided, previous council decided there couldn't be 2 or 3 or just 1. Is there any, are we limiting anybody else from coming forward and making application to the town?
Thank you, Your Worship. We are not limiting. Council's thought at the time was that it would be self-limiting. It would figure out exactly how many stores would be required here. We're not a big area, so they felt that they didn't have to put a limit on things. We do provide the zones, are the town center and the highway commercial zones have been designated for locating cannabis stores within that area. So it's town center and highway commercial.
One more question. Has there been anybody else come forward asking for support?
I do believe that we have had one query with regards to a building on Main Street. And they were asking about the time for getting an application in front of us, and we're provided the facts that they have to go through the province first before it comes to us.
Yeah, and this ask here is not an application, it's just an ask. They're asking
if we're interested to ask them for more information or invite them in to discuss it even more.
Okay, thank you. I would say I would be in favor of extending a letter as well, sending an invitation. Any further discussion, council?
Sure, I'd be happy to make the motion. That council extend an invitation to the BC liquor distribution branch to discuss the possibility of locating a government-operated cannabis retail store in Oliver.
Seconder, Schwarzenberger, any further discussion?
I guess I would just kind of hit on Councilor Schwarzenberger's point that this seemed to be a form letter that
It was.
most everyone received.
Right.
It's probably be a foreign presentation.
Yes.
CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do believe it is a letter that was sent to all municipalities that had indicated that they would not oppose having a liquor distribution branch facility.
Seeing no further discussion, I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have some other correspondence received for information only. Correspondence dated November 20th, 2018 from Oliver District Heritage Society regarding 2019 operating budget request. RDOS 5-year financial plan, electoral area C and Town of Oliver. correspondence dated November 21st, 2018 from Alder Tourism Association advising of change in hours of operation and closure from December 15th, 2018 to February 13th, 2019. And an email dated November 21st, 2018 advising of a rural events review to explore community level recruitment and retention of health professionals to rural communities in BC. Do I have a motion that the above correspondence and weekly mail correspondence be received? Councillor Mattis?
I will make a motion that the above correspondence be received.
Second by Councillor Grice. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to council reports. Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Wednesday, November 14th, I attended the Heritage Committee meeting. Tuesday, November 20th, the budget meeting for water and sewer rates with the rest of my colleagues here at the table. And Friday, November 23rd, the Christmas light up, which was an excellent event. It was a little cold and a little wet at the beginning anyway, but a great crowd and fantastic fireworks. That's my report.
Councillor Grace.
On November 14th, I attended the Empty Bowls fundraiser for the Desert Sun Counseling Center. Councilor Millen was there as well. Still your thunder. Thanks a lot. November 17th, I attended the celebration of Helping Hands fundraiser for Desert Valley Hospice Society. Council was well represented there as well. November 20th, the budget meeting. November 18th, oh sorry, skipping back, I was at the OSNS telethon briefly, and November 23rd, the town light up, of course, which was wonderful, and then yesterday, the 25th, the community Christmas concert.
Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the 17th, the hospice fundraiser for Frank Venables, the budget meeting on the 20th, and the light up on the 20th.
Councillor Benjamin.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat a lot that's been said. Wednesday, November the 14th, I was Councillor Grice and many others at the Empty Bowls fundraiser for Desert Sun, which is a great fundraiser. I think we heard they raised somewhere in the field of around $20,000. Thursday and Friday, November the 15th and the 16th, I was at Regional District Penticton for orientation days. Saturday, November the 17th, I spent the day again in Penticton at the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services Board Retreat, our sort of strategic planning for the year. And that evening was at the Desert Valley Hospice Caring Hands fundraiser as well. Tuesday, November the 20th, I attended the special open budget meeting with everyone else. Thursday, November the 22nd, got my first look into the world that is regional district budgets and attended the day-long workshop up there. Friday, I was with everyone else at the light up and fireworks. If I may, take a minute to thank a lot of people. Councillor Grice really stepped up this year and helped us out with canvassing businesses and getting all the money we need to pull it off. And there was a huge group of volunteers that sort of pulled together in the last couple of months and did some really cool things downtown that we've been seeing for a while. So using the Mesa lot and empty building from Mrs. Cosman. And of course, Santa, he helps us out every year. And the fire department. They do a great job touring Santa around. They create a massive bonfire that seems borderline dangerous at times, but it's a ton of fun and nice and warm, and the fireworks were great again as well. So thank you to everyone for coming and attending and helping. And then I don't know if this is necessarily appropriate for the council report, but just in light of the visit that we had today from the three doctors, former chief of staff, former head of emergency medicine, and current head. And the conversation that we've been having about maybe getting together with the CSCN, I don't know if that's something that we could plan for the not too distant future, get back together with the CSCN, maybe members of the Medical Staff Association, and start to strategize again on how we can sort of move forward together with a unified voice and unified position, because as Dr. Nolan said, we all have the same goal, which is keeping our emergency department open. So we have to figure out how to do that. That's it, that's in my report, thank you.
Thank you. Been there, done that. I just went through my report. I too was at the Desert Valley Hospice celebration of Helping Hands on November 17th, Saturday. Budget meeting on November 20th. The light up, Christmas light up on November 23rd. Those were some amazing fireworks. I think they will give the Suyas a run for their Canada Day. They went on and on and on. It was awesome. Pee Wee hockey tournament on the weekend. I took part in watching a few games there, and the Christmas show with the Frank Venables Theater on Sunday was really amazing to see some of the talent that's in Oliver. And that concludes my report. Upcoming meetings for December. Last meeting of 2018 will be Monday, December 10th, 2018. 4 p.m. committee of the whole meeting, and at 7 p.m. a regular open council meeting. Acting mayor for November, December. November, just a few days left to go for Councillor Benjamila, and December will be Councillor Schwarzenberger. I will ask if there's any members of the audience wishing to ask council questions regarding matters discussed during the meeting. Seeing none, I will call the question to adjourn the meeting.